everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Kimberly. Today's video I am going to be talking about kibble versus raw. So I'm not going to go extremely in depth about raw diets here, mainly because that I feel is a video all in of itself. So this is not teaching you how to feed raw. This is just kind of giving you the pros and cons of each diet, some myths, some facts, and just kind of explaining the differences, because I get people sometimes asking which is better for their bull terrier, especially bull terriers that have skin issues. I have people asking me which kind of diet I would recommend, and I want to preface this by saying I am not a vet. I am not a nutritionalist. I am just somebody who has had personal experiences with feeding kibble, with feeding raw, with bull terriers with skin issues, with food allergies, food intolerances, food sensitivities, and I've kind of put in a lot of work to ensure that my dogs are as healthy and happy as they can be. I also want to clarify right now that when I talk about raw, what I mean is raw meat diet. When I first got started, raw meat diet or raw diet meant raw meat diet. Nowadays you see a lot of commercially prepared dog food companies slapping the raw label on their foods. I think that can be very confusing to people. So when I talk about a raw meat diet, what I'm talking about is raw meat, not meat that has been dried, freeze-dried, cooked, or processed in any way, aside from, being cut, cleaned, perhaps ground up. There are nowadays commercially prepared raw meat diets, which is great. Honestly, it's awesome. So which is better? Raw meat versus kibble? Honestly, I can't answer that. The reason I can't answer that is because from all the research that I've done over the years, I have found that kibble and raw both have their benefits, and every dog is different. I used to be a hardcore raw only person, and then I started talking to more people. I've come to the conclusion that it all just boils down to what works for your dog and what works for you. Honestly, in my opinion, the kibble raw debate should not boil down to your ego and what makes you look like the better dog owner. It should come down to your dog's health and well-being. With that being said, the pros of feeding a raw meat diet is it can be better for dogs with allergies because, and I want to stress this, it has nothing to do with raw being better than kibble. What it has to do with is when you feed your dog a raw diet, you have complete control over what they're eating. You see what's in there, you know what's in there. Your dog is having issues with, be it skin issues, stomach issues, chronic ear infection, anything like that, you're not going to know. If you have a dog with an allergy, or if you have a dog who's having chronic diarrhea, for example, that could be really hard to pinpoint. So you can't just look at the kibble and look at your dog after eating the kibble and say, oh, I bet it was that. You can't do it. When you feed a homemade even or a raw meat diet, if your dog has a reaction, you can say, oh, I know exactly what this was from. And you can take that out and you can replace it with something else. Raw diets, in my opinion, that's the pro of them. Some of the cons are they can be difficult, they can be expensive, because when you feed a dog a raw diet, you are paying very close attention to their poops that you probably wouldn't do if you fed your dog kibble, because it's the exact same thing in measured amounts every time. When you're feeding a raw diet to give it balance, your dog needs muscle meat, your dogs need organ meat, and your dog needs bone. They need all three of these things. You cannot go to a grocery store, buy your dog chicken breasts, and say, this looks like a really good meal, because it's not nutritionally complete. So if you're squeamish by that, or you can't source that, or it's too expensive, or it's too difficult to prepare, I would say reconsider a raw diet or look at commercially prepared raw diets. I'm really scared about bacteria, and I know vets push bacteria as being this super scary thing, and it can be. Your dog, I'm not going to lie, your dog can get food poisoning, salmonella, E. coli. Your dog can get sick from bacteria in raw meat. But, this is a big but, okay? I said but. But here's the thing. Honestly, it's not as common as vets would scare you into believing. And I say this as somebody who has spent the last 10 years speaking with hundreds, if not thousands, of raw feeders, and it is so, I honestly think I've heard of one dog to ever get food poisoning from eating raw meat. It's just not common. My dogs have never gotten sick or gotten food poisoning from eating raw meat. You have to be clean, just as if you were cooking for your family. So you need to wash your hands, clean surfaces. You need to ensure that your dog's meat always stays at the proper temperature. So you don't let meat sit out on the counter, for 2 or 3 days until it starts to smell. If the meat smells, you throw it away. You just use, proper hygiene and, making sure that the meat is good. Bone is another thing. Yes, dogs can choke on bones. Yes, dogs can cut their throats and their mouths and their stomachs on bones. Again, with raw bones, this is not as common as a lot of vets would kind of scare you into believing, but that's not to say that it can't happen. Now, I know a lot of raw feeders get really angry at vets, and I know a lot of people try to say that vets are simply trying to push kibble because they can make money and they can sell it. Honestly, I don't buy that. Vets push kibble diets because you can screw up a dog and you can cause problems if you don't do a raw diet right. And people who don't do raw diets right and they take their dogs in, and vets see poorly done raw diets where dogs are nutritionally deficient, yeah, they're going to tell the average person, hey, don't put your dog on a raw diet. Put them on kibble, because it's really, really hard to cause nutritional deficiencies in a dog who's eating kibble, okay? It's really hard to cause foodborne illness in a dog who's eating kibble. So, in my opinion, that's good of a vet to kind of caution and warn the average person away from feeding raw. But that doesn't mean that you can never feed your dog raw, or that raw is so dangerous that your dog is definitely going to die eating it. So another thing is, let's talk about parasites. So I've heard some people say that if your dog eats a raw diet, they'll never get parasites, or vice versa. If your dog eats a raw diet, they're gonna get parasites from eating raw meat. Is there a chance of your dog getting parasites from eating raw meat? Yes. Again, be smart about it. Be clean. Use food that is, if you use human grade meat, if you go wild caught game, you just have to freeze it for an amount of time. But again, I'm not going to get into, how to raw feed. But are parasites a risk? Yes. But I mean, in all fairness, dogs go out and eat poop. They eat wild animal poop. Dogs will go out and they'll eat dead animals that they find. Dogs will go out and they'll eat dirt. So this is why we routinely deworm our dogs anyways, right? Dogs are going to get parasites because they eat gross stuff. the likelihood of your dog getting a really bad parasite from eating raw meat is pretty low. If you feed your dog a raw diet, you never have to worry about heartworm or fleas or ticks. Honestly, I don't know where this came from. This is such a horrible myth, okay? This is just a stupid, wrong myth. If you feed your dog a raw diet, I can promise you they're still going to get bit by bugs, mosquitoes, ticks, fleas. They're still going to get worms if they eat worm eggs off the ground, if they eat wild animal poop that has worms in it. They're gonna get worms from that. Just because you feed your dog rabbit fur or like a whole rabbit that has fur still on it, it's not going to deworm your dog. I'm sorry, but rabbit hair and hair, feeding your dog fur from an animal is not going to deworm them. Feeding them raw meat isn't going to resist parasites. It's not going to create some shield on their skin. You still have to deworm your dog. You still have to worry about parasites. Trust me, I live in Upper Michigan. My dogs were prey model raw fed strictly for 11 years. Trust me, he still got bit by mosquitoes. He still got thousands of ticks attached to him. He still got fleas. We still had to do a routine flea and tick and deworming schedule, treatment, whatever. Heartworms, yes, for God's sake, make sure you use a heartworm preventative, flea and tick preventative. Just, dogs cannot digest bones. Dogs cannot digest cooked bones. Dogs can digest raw bones just fine. Some myths about kibble. Kibble is a cancer and it will shorten your dog's life. Honestly, if that was the case, it would be consistent across the board and dogs would live super short lives as compared to every dog that ate a raw meat diet. And that's just not true. Genetics plays a huge role here in your dog's lifespan. My dog Caesar, he ate a prey model raw diet for the first 10 years of his life until he was diagnosed with cancer. I mean, he has cancer. He has a ton of health issues. It's genetics, okay, that has nothing to do with his diet, because if it was based on his diet, he spent all of his life eating a raw diet until just recently when I put him on kibble because of current world events. Kibble is not going to shorten your dog's life. Your dog is going to live as long as they're going to live for. Quality of your dog's life is important. So just don't worry about your ego on what you're feeding your dog. Just do your best by your dog. Do what's good for them. Do what's good for you both. Kibble or grain inclusive kibbles will cause skin allergies. This is a huge myth, okay? I know plenty of bull terriers that do fantastic on kibble and can't eat raw because it causes so much issues for them. Don't buy it. If kibble works for you, feed it. If one brand works for you over another, if grain inclusive diets work for you and your dog, feed those. If your dog can't tolerate kibble, which some can't, some do just fine. If they can't, find a kibble that doesn't have grains. Don't let the DCM scare freak you out. If your dog is suffering on a grain inclusive kibble, put them on a grain-free kibble. If it helps your dog feel better, talk to your vet, put them on a grain-free kibble. Do what's best for your dog. Kibble is safe to always feed your dog and will never cause issues. Also a myth. And you always see recalls on kibble due to bacteria, due to causing seizures, bloody diarrhea. That's just the chance you have to take, okay? A raw diet and a kibble diet can both cause gastrointestinal upsets. They can both cause foodborne illness. It's just a matter of doing things properly, proper handling, of the ingredients of the things you're feeding your dog. Obviously, you're not going to let chicken sit out in the sun for an hour or two and then feed it to your dog, because yeah, you're running the risk of bacteria. Understand how bacteria works and grows, and then you can kind of make better decisions, okay? Kibble has its recall. If a vet or somebody is telling you that your dog is never going to have any illnesses or get sick ever from Kibble, that's a load of crap. I've also met a dog that actually choked and died while eating a bowl of Kibble. It is what it is, okay? Life is risky. Things can kill us at any turn. It's scary, okay? The only thing we can do is the best that we can do for our dogs. We can only make decisions based on what works best for us and our dogs. I will say about Kibble diets that quality of the ingredients is important. There are Kibbles who use a lot of crap fillers. So definitely look at quality Kibbles. Purina Pro Plan is a decent quality Kibble, whether people like it or not. Things like Origin, Merrick, Victor, some of these pricier Kibbles, look at those. They tend to have better quality ingredients that are going to be less likely to cause skin issues in your dog. But even still, some of them might. Like I said, when it comes to a dog and skin issues, there is no, black and white, this is right, this is wrong. No hard line drawn in the sand on what works and what doesn't. Honestly, skin and gut issues are so extremely difficult to work on, and they're so extremely difficult to learn how to deal with, and it's just a matter of, a process and learning what works for you and your dog. So I really hope that this video was somewhat helpful to some people. I know I have a really bad habit of kind of rambling on and having trouble keeping everything kind of clearly well defined, and I apologize about that. It is something I'm trying to get better at, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I try to be super active in my comments, answering questions when I can. Sometimes I'll get a question and I'll say, hey, that would make a great video, but in general, I do tend to answer questions in the comments, or, you can always hit me up on my Facebook page. Check out my Facebook page. Check out our Instagram. You can find links in the title below. And like I said, I really hope that this was helpful to some of you. If there are any other video ideas that you'd like me to touch on, any subjects or topics, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Like I said, I'm super active in comments. So anyways, it is probably about 6 o'clock in the morning now, and I gotta go to bed. So I will see you guys in another video. Consider subscribing. Bye!